So ECOWAS, the West African regional bloc, is once again pushing for a single currency, the ECO, by 2027. Now, the idea is to make trade easier, to bring some price stability, and also to attract investors across West Africa. But let's be honest, the road has been anything but smooth. Nigeria's Finance Minister, Wale Edun, is also warning that inflation, security threats, and global shocks are all slowing the progress. But even though Nigeria's economy grew 3.4% this year, with inflation near 30%, it's a tough sell for regional stability. And with Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger walking away from ECOWAS this year also, unity is looking quite fragile. So will West Africa finally make the ECO happen, or does 2027 become just another missed deadline? I'm joined by Dr. Unwana Samuel. He's a lecturer at University of Lagos in Nigeria. And we also have Dr. Ani-Laju. He's an expert sustainable development in Africa in Lagos as well. Also, Muktar Mohammed, CEO, Asher Investment Ltd, Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us at this time.
Are we good?
All right, so let me begin with Muktar. Now, Muktar, the Minister Edun actually called the ECO's adoption a monumental achievement. But ECOWAS has been promising this currency since the 1980s, with at least 4 missed launch dates in the last 20 years as well. What's fundamentally different now? Why should West Africans trust that 2027 won't be just another missed deadline?
Asher, thank you again. I think nothing is different. I don't know the optimism that the minister is sharing. I think what has made this currency not see the light of day up to this moment is why do we want a single currency? I think until we answer that question, we will continue to have all these deadlines shifted, and 2027 will not be an exception. What is the idea of a single currency? Why do nations go for single currency? Region or continents go for single currency. It depends on the volume of trade within them. That's why they begin to look at ease of trade, and then they begin to think of single currency. Single currency is not just because you want to feel among that finally Africa will have a single currency, Pan-Africanism has come to stay. No, single currency is normally based on trade. And that is the big question in Africa. How much trade do we transact within ourselves in Africa? How much trade was Nigeria as a country transact with its neighbor Benin Republic outside of smuggling other products or cars landing in Benin ports that are cheaper to clear than in Nigerian port, with the exception of Dangote cement, which seems to pass through the borders and now refine petroleum products? How much business do a country like Nigeria even transact with its neighbor outside of the South African blocks? The Southern African region, where you see trade between Zimbabwe and South Africa, Namibia, Rwanda, Botswana, and trading within themselves. Outside of that, you don't see that happen within the African bloc and itself. Because let me give you an example. It's not easy to even have a flight from Lagos to Benin. A direct flight from Lagos to Benin. And then we talk about the road networks. How much road do we have? How much rail network do we have to interlink Africa for this trade? If you look at Europe, why do they have the single currency? It was due to the volume of trade and looking for a way to ease trading within themselves. That's why they came with the euros. So we need to ask ourselves this question: why do we want the single currency? And what are we going to do if we have a single currency? What's the volume of trade within ourselves? Until we answer this question, the idea of a single currency will continue to be a mirage.
Dr. Samuel, if you can hear me, let's have your thoughts on this. What does it say about the ECOWAS's credibility that even now, with 2027 on the table, there's more rhetoric than a roadmap?
The discourse concerning a regional currency that has origin in West Africa is just a theoretical discussion, because at the end of the day, it will not materialize for the sake that some of these West African countries might not respect this currency. I don't believe in a single currency. Why do I don't believe? The reason I don't believe in single currency is very simple. You find out that the dollar, you can use dollar to pay for anything in Nigeria. Is it also? You can use pound to pay for anything in Nigeria, which is more like a currency accepted globally, and then they've been able to build their currency to the point that it can be accepted globally. So when you begin to build your country's currency, to the fact that it can trade favorably, or with some other currencies around the world, then you are now coming up. I tell you the truth, if there is this currency that, whether you call it eco currency or flow currency, and at the end of the day, I take this currency to Ghana or I take it to any other West African country, I can tell you favorably that this currency would be discriminated upon because we have not built ourselves to that level where we can accept one or a single currency that speaks for all of us. Is it when a South African guy, is fighting a Nigerian or a Kenyan guy, or the Kenyans are kind of not wanting to know anything about Nigeria and all of that you bring a single currency? I understand the concept, but the truth remains that we have not done the sensitization, effort enough to be able to bring this to the table. And I tell you what, when you bring this currency maybe to a woman around Australia and say, hey, you can use this currency and buy and all of that, the Yafish will tell you, I don't understand, it's the Naira that I know, I'm aware of. So you find out that there will be this kind of discrimination, there will be this kind of inferiorization, of this currency when it's being introduced. So I believe that the awareness of this currency has not been created, and then the orientation about this currency, the so-called eco currency, has not really been, created. Let me ask you a question. Do you really believe that the West African region that we are speaking in one voice, when there are a lot of people who have pulled out, I'm talking about, okay, let me not say a lot of people, when some blocks, some West African countries have pulled out from the ECOWAS and say, hey, they don't want to belong to this. What makes you think that Niger would want to float this currency? So there's this issue of division, there's this issue of orientation, there's this issue of cultural, cross-fertilization that you have to fix before you float such currency. Otherwise, it's going to be a flop at the end of the day.
Hello, Dr. Samuel, if you can hear me, you actually sound quite, confident, but history also tells, a different story, because, ECOWAS has actually, if you take a look at you talked about, it's only South Africa, that's doing trade business with, other countries and all that. But what about the CFA franc? That's the franc is what I'm talking about. So you have some countries, that have actually adopted that, and it's working for them as well.
I just finished speaking with a friend of mine, with a scholar from Zimbabwe. I was asking him some questions, about, the currency floated around, the common currency floated around that country. I can tell you confidently that the currency you just mentioned, you take it to Zimbabwe, is not accepted. That's the truth. You can call anybody along the street, and ask these questions. In fact, there's this disdain that the Namibians, have about that. They believe that their currency is supreme to that, to that currency. There is this sense of tribal orientation when it comes to the commonness of currency, the commonness of culture. There's this concept, there's this ideology, there's this notion that it has to be me, before you. So for you to be able to sell a single unit of currency to any African, it doesn't matter the region, you have to undergo serious sensitization. Let them own it first. Let them see that, hey, this is more like, although the headquarters of this bank is in, Nairobi, is in Accra, is in Kumasi, is in Lagos, we are the owner. If you don't create this sense of promotion, this sensitization, and this ownership, I tell you the truth, because at the end of the day, what is currency? Is for trading, is for exchange of goods and services. If it is rejected, it means that the purpose where it was created, has failed.
All right, so now let's quickly hear from Victor. Let's hear his thoughts on this, if he is quite optimistic or pessimistic about the ECO. Let's hear from you, Victor.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me. I would say having an ECOWAS currency is a good step in the right direction. What we need to look inwardly is how does it benefit the Nigerian economy? I believe the first thing we as a country, especially we Nigerians, we need to do is to create a think tank team that can take advantage of it. It's a welcome idea, it's a welcome development. We have about 16 to 17 countries in West Africa. That's big enough. That should give us about, plus Nigeria, we should be looking at about 350, 400 million people. That will strengthen our trade. That will open more inter-economic activity will also take place. It will reduce cost on importation and also exportation within the ECOWAS corridor. I see a lot of advantages of it, but my own is for we as a nation, how we're preparing to take advantage of these opportunities. They're seamless opportunities. Wonderful. Nigeria being let me use the word, the capital of ECOWAS, we can now really strategize where the printing is done in Nigeria, because definitely we're going to have a central bank that will control it. It's hosted here in Nigeria. Nigerians can now do trade. We can now sell our goods and services across the ECOWAS country without being charged any tariff or without having to buy foreign currency. And that will help us to sell. Nigeria is the capital hub for the whole of Africa, right? And we might not be at our A game right now because of the economic crunch, but with this, we can now work more on our agricultural proceeds. We can now sell our crude oil or our refined product. Now we have like 3 refineries working. We can sell within the ECOWAS community easily, and there will be this easy movement. There will be this free transaction within us, and just imagine us selling to about 13 countries almost every day. That means the Nigerian economy will become more bigger, more larger to accommodate more transactions from other countries without having to buy forex, right? Okay. And that will now take us to our manpower. Nigerians can now work within these countries. We can now create business. Somebody like me that have a business in Nigeria, I can now start having branches within this ECOWAS country with ease. So for me, it's a welcome idea and it's a lofty idea. What we need to look into is how does it benefit us as Nigeria as a country. And I know ECOWAS is sitting on Nigeria economy. I know that very well because I've been in the sustainable development goal, especially when it comes to Africa. So I know ECOWAS is dependent on Nigeria.
All right, Victor, now talking about ECOWAS depending on Nigeria's economy, let me forward this question to Muktar quickly. We have Nigeria, reporting 3.4% GDP growth in 2024. Ghana is battling over 23% inflation, battled over 23% inflation last year, and 2% in Cote d'Ivoire. And, countries like Niger, Burkina Faso, facing economic contractions tied to political instability. How does ECOWAS expect to converge these economies and more that are moving in completely different directions?
It's a mirage. I wish I'm as confident.
Hello, Muktar.
Okay, I thought he was still talking. So I wish I was confident as other colleagues in terms of the ECOWAS currency, eco currency, or whatever we call it. He's talking about having trade and within opening your borders, having businesses. There are a lot of challenges that are involved in that have not been addressed. It's just more or less statement, optimism without any proper roadmap. Like you said, if you look at the GDP, you look at insecurity, but even let's leave the GDP, let's leave insecurity for now, and let's look at, I keep saying, let's look at networking, what the routes, the transportation, which is majorly the movement of goods from point A to point B. You will really have it within this African continent, especially within the ECOWAS sub-region. You mustn't forget that the ECOWAS sub-region is also divided between the Anglophone and the Francophone country. That's also a major challenge. And, you know, and that is why you see the bloc, Burkina Faso and others, Niger, Chad, are saying that will not be part of ECOWAS. Those are mostly the Francophone bloc. So we need to look at things holistically and look at it, how workable it is. And the only way it could work is when there's a trade balance, or no matter whether trade balance or trade imbalance, because even you look at our trade with European nations, it's thrown around a lot of imbalance. But what we should be looking at is how do we improve our trading within ourselves? I think that should be the priority first. When you see the volume of trade between Nigeria and Ghana, between Nigeria and Benin, not in terms of finished products, I mean, that comes from Europe, that land in Nigerian port and Nigeria is importing to Benin. No, I'm talking about products that are here in Nigeria, trade that are developed here in Nigeria. How can we not sell those products to those in Benin? And then from Benin, we can move to Sierra Leone, we can move to Ghana. That should be the hallmark of what we are thinking. How will the tax policy be? Will it be tax-free? And if you are taxing it, how do you tax it? Those are technical issues that we are not even looking at or dealing with. Then cost of production. He's excited that Nigeria will become the hub when you look at the production, when you look at our population, but we have forgotten the cost of production, which is key. In other African countries, cost of production is low compared to Nigeria because of our power production situation, because of our exchange rate volatility. So Nigeria will become a dumping ground. A lot of Nigeria will patronize those other goods than we patronizing their own good, because than them patronizing Nigerian good, because their goods will be cheaper, our goods will be more expensive because of our cost of production. So that is why up to this moment you see that Nigeria is not really directly involved in the African Continental Trade Agreement. So when you're excited about it in here, you need to look at what do you bring to the table? What is the cost of your goods? What are the manpower? Do you have the expertise? How, in terms of funding, your exchange, your funding, your interest rate, how is it like? Is it easy to get money from the bank to expand compared to the business in Ghana? So those are technicalities that you need to look before you begin to say, you know what, we cannot have a single currency because it will be beneficiary to all of us. But as it stands now, if you have a single currency, the excitement of Nigeria being the giant of the sub-region will disappear, because most of these countries coming together will patronize their goods better than Nigeria goods, because of the cheap nature of their goods that will come into our country. We will have the population, and then we'll begin to consume their goods, because one, it will be cheaper, and probably because of production costs and everything, it could even be more better than ours. So we need to look at things. Before you go out, you need to put your own house in order. You also need to improve your trade within yourselves. So once you do that, when the volume of trade has gone up between these countries, then they will now begin to look for a seamless measure of transaction of business. That is the whole idea of currency. Currency is movement. When you say currency, that is movement. Currency is all about trade. It's not about political stability. It's not about security. Yes, security and political stability have a role to play. But first of all, currency is about trade. It's not about all those political jargons you say, no, it's all about trade. Sanitization will be easy when I know the volume of trade between me and you. So that means the businessman in Ghana, the businessman in Nigeria will already know about oh, we need to transact business for ease of doing business. That's why we are using the same currency. So sanitization will be easy. But as it stands now, how do you convince the Ghana man that Ghana cedi is not better than Nigerian naira? So those are technicalities that you should be able to deal with. And after that, then you begin to talk about, can we now have a single currency? Because since we have a lot of things, especially in business, doing together. For me, that is the first point. How do we improve trade within ourselves? After that, then when you look at the volume of trade, then you begin to look at the ease of trading. That is where a single currency is very necessary.
Right, Muktar. Now, Dr. Samuel, you've heard what Muktar said. And in addition to that, you know, West Africa's GDP growth averaged around 3% in 2024. But this is even, you know, uneven across the region. From jihadist insurgencies in the Sahel to political instability in Guinea and also Niger. Can the currency, because I know you're kind of in between, but can the currency be able to build, would we or would ECOWAS be able to build a common currency in such fragile foundations? Because even the Minister Edun cited security challenges as a major obstacle, you know, in large parts of the region, you know, which are effectively outside state control, even, you know, bringing it to northern Nigeria, where, you know, the Boko Haram insurgency, you know, is afloat.
Let me tell you, I've always believed that Nigeria will be so stable, even when I was so young, you know, and that especially Nigeria's currency will be so stable and become strong as the dollar. The US would not need to, you know, join themselves with Canada and then with Mexico and the surrounding, maybe North Africa and South Africa, to bring out a single currency. You see, when you are strong, you are strong. You find out that the Canadians are using dollars, but it's called the Canadian dollar. Why? Because they've been able to develop their currency to become so strong. They would have gone with the British pound sterling, but they decided to, you know, to use, to give their currency a dollar. Even when they don't have the American orientation, and you know that Canada is, you know, among the Commonwealth, or they were colonized by the British, you know, but they chose a currency that is strong, a currency that can have the purchasing power, you know, a currency that does the transatlantic, or can I say the global trade, just like the last person said. The question is, what is the possibility of these currencies succeeding? I heard the other day that the African Union, they are trying to bet a currency called Afro currency, where one currency would be used throughout of Africa. Now, my question is, if they are able to bring out this kind of currency, where only one currency is used throughout Africa, and then there's this one of ECO currency, where it's used only in the around the West African region. Are we not duplicating currencies, or are there not going to be rivalry or conflict of interest, conflict of commercial or economic or currency interest? Then why do we have to have a lot of regional currencies? South Africans have their own with the Southern Bloc, and then the West Africans have their own with the Southern Bloc, and all of that. Look at the euro. Euro is euro, no matter where you take it to, whether in Germany, whether in Poland, whether in Norway, even in UK. You know, so I see. I'm coming from the communication aspect of it, because I look at these projects as a project that could work, but you need a lot of orientation. The authorities need to put in so much orientation, so much awareness, so that there will not be conflicts of interest. Like the last speaker said, we're already battling with the issue of terrorism. So by the time you bring out a currency that can be used around the western region, around the western region of Africa, it means that terrorists would lay their hands on it and maybe kidnap somebody, and then they tell you to pay euro, because what it is accepted everywhere around the West African region. So I don't know